keep moving on here. Okay, incentive, disincentive. So we talk about definitions, incentive, disincentive. Do you guys like incentive, disincentives? Have you used them? What have you used them for? And then the better question is, with follow-through, have they worked for you? Yes, no? Pam?
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having both and not just doing it?
Oh, okay. Here, yeah, commonly, good comment on here. The way I look at it, there's two sides of the coin. As far as federal highways, we don't have necessarily any formal policy whether you have both. However, I guess personally I encourage both because two sides of the coin. On one hand, if you want to give the contractor the carrot, depending upon what you're trying to put the incentive in for, on the flip side, overall for the contractor, if we're trying to incur a cost, more efficient use of taxpayer funds and a expeditious schedule in essence, you may want to also do the disincentive to encourage a balancing of for this item that they can get a bonus, however on this item they may get a disincentive. Because I know a couple projects I've found out in the past 6 months, the contractor was running behind. Coincidentally, the state put out a state-directed change order, which allowed the contractor to double shift for the state-directed change order, which then allowed the contractor to, in essence, made the incentive of about, I think it was 2 or 3 million as a gimme. So to me, that was double dipping. So it's one of those things that with design build, ideally, that as you put in incentive and disincentives, think through the scenarios, good case, worst case, so you don't set yourself up for potential double payment and or down the road claims. Because ideally, with your design build, you always have some level of contingency that you can pull from for overrun, underruns, really unforeseen things, but that should be very minor. And as far as incentive, the big one used nationally, most cases would be a internal milestone to say, get this road open, say, get this interchange open by this date for Christmas season so all the shoppers can get to that mall, as an example. Or another one would be if you got some with the resource agency where there has some adronomous fish or fish endangered species, you want to do something to help them maybe be part of the permit, you do an incentive. On the other hand, if it's important for an incentive, always consider, personally for me, would be a disincentive. Because if it's really important to you, all the bidders can bid on it and incorporate it into the contract accordingly. If you don't put a disincentive, it's taken a lower level of ingenuity that they'll probably put into it to make it happen. Okay, comment, Serena?
Jeff, can you talk about incentive disincentives and what the differences between that and the no excuse bonus, which is a set forth?
This hasn't happened locally, has it?
Just can you, we're asking you questions, not the other way around. Hypothetically.
Well, you got to remember with the SCP-14, like Jerry went through this morning, it's a way to pilot experiment, depending on which angle you take, on the newer project, on different actions or efforts, specs, methods for a project. And so the no cost, no excuse delay one is the one you're after. Hey, the no excuse or no cost, the one you're after? No excuse. That, as far as I know, that was part of the SCP, one way for the SCP-14 to look at a new way to handle things, to try to put a time constraint to the contractor of which a SCP-14 was being used. Is that right, Jerry? Correct. And that nationally that has been tried, but again, I guess I haven't, and Jerry's sort of the owner of that database. that I haven't seen, and that's a national database that and Jerry showed that to you earlier, that any of you can go in there and look at it and see what's being provided for different states, that I haven't seen that many states. I've seen a few states try it, but the jury's still out there as far as whether that can go into the mainstream or not. And then as far as federal highways, as far as each state, if and when it went mainstream, that could eventually, like design build, it's just another tool for that particular agency to use at their discretion. So, any comments on that, Jerry?
Yeah, we've operationalized IV, consumer business limits, and around on A+B, but with no excuse bonus, Florida came up with that concept in the late 1990s. We're still interested in following it experimentally because there's a possibility, hasn't happened with our knowledge, but a contractor might make the incentive base, but be delayed by the owner and might be pushed past the gate and not receive the incentive, and may take the opportunity to sue the department despite what it says in the contract. So we think that's still a possibility, and that's why we're following it experimentally, just to see what the outcome might be. Those situations come up.
Okay,
So
then,
we have to make an application if we want to use the no excuse.
Yeah, it's a work plan. There's some examples on our web page. There's 5 or 6 examples. It can be done. Should
yeah, the way I look at it, again, like it's baby steps to learn a new process, try a new process, whether it's SCP-14 or experimental, it all rolls under that. But it gives you the chance, like with the latest administration looking for innovation, like now's a really good time to submit stuff like that because, and then like Jerry's mentioned, we're trying to build a database to determine, as far as federal highways, if that's a good tool, boom, you've got it, and then on the flip side, you use it at your discretion. Where on the other hand, if everybody sort of does their own thing, getting back to consistency, like we mentioned before on the different standard provisions per region, you potentially claim-wise, to me, you're setting yourself up for potential inconsistency down the road and the court to rule on the contractor's favor. So you can sort of see the philosophy about it, but it all boils down to document it. SCP-14 has a work plan requirement, not a big thing, just a template, schedule, when's the validation, time frame, boom, write a report, and you're good to go.